Hello, BookTube. I didn't do a Friday Reads yesterday, not because I forgot, but because I made 15 videos yesterday, so I thought one more would be a little excessive, so I didn't do that. But I do like the weekly pause, the weekly look at what you're reading. What you're reading is like, what you're doing, what you've just read, what you're working on now, what you're going to be reading. I do like those kinds of videos, and I like making them, and you seem to like them too. So I thought I'd do a weekend reading. Those are popular too. Those are popular videos for people who don't want to be. They want to be rebels. They don't want to do a Friday reads. They don't want to be tied down to the day. My excuse me. My February reading is going like gangbusters. Absolutely going like gangbusters. I have read a lot of books in February, an unprecedented amount, almost an even number, and I've enjoyed a lot of it. I've enjoyed a lot of it. I've been reading a lot. I've been doing a lot of reading. That's been great. I have to confess, I've been doing a lot of reading on electronically. I mean, either on the Kindle or on the iPad. Not a lot of that reading has been in print. I don't know if that's because I can get everything electronically, or a lot of what I want electronically, or if because the print reading that I've been doing has a large chunk of it been pulled down by a 2-volume set of books about the Taft Court. There's a lot of my physical reading, but I do have a lot of books to talk to you about. I won't go through the list of everything in this last week because I'm mindful of the fact that a lot of it will be tedious. A lot of it isn't out yet, won't be really helpful to you, and also I'm also mindful of the fact that I could appear snotty, since by dawn tomorrow morning, my February reading total will be the total that a lot of you have set for your year. so just for February, I will hit those kinds of numbers. I don't want to appear any snottier than I already am. So we'll just go through a few books here and chat just a little bit about them. And the first one is something that we saw on this channel. This is by Tim and Emma Flannery. And this is a little book on Megalodon. That is a great white shark. And that is a Megalodon, a gigantic shark that roamed the shallow seas of Earth millions of years ago. It is long since extinct. There are no megalodon on Earth anymore, but it's famous, on some circles anyway, for a series of terrifically trashy books and also a couple of movies made off those books. And this was more of a fun little romp. Those of you who are familiar with Tim Flannery's books, they're wonderful and big and challenging and rather textured. This doesn't have a lot of that. This seems like a fun collaboration between the two Flannerys. There are quick thumbnail profiles of some Meg experts, some Meg researchers and whatnot, and there are fun profiles of what Meg might have been like, of what it would have been like for a human being to see this creature in the world. It's not a rigorous treatment. At all. I don't mean to slight it. It was enjoyable, but it's not. It's a snack of a book rather than anything else. It'll be an afternoon for you to read it and get everything that it wants to say. Then we have a murder mystery. This is a cozy murder mystery. It doesn't get cozier than this. This is by Harper Lynn. It's called A Book to Kill For. I don't remember how this was suggested to me. I'm not the world's biggest cozy mystery fan. I know that they are the most popular subgenre of the murder mystery genre, but I'm not their biggest fan. I always want to echo a John Mulaney comedy routine and say a man has died. I just want to point out there's a dead body here. This is not supposed to be cozy, meet cute, and every chapter ends with a cafe latte recipe or whatnot. But this is the story of a woman who works in a cute, cozy little bookstore, a perennial setting for cozy murder mysteries. And the owner, her beloved owner, dies, and the new owner he doesn't want to close the store, but he does want to change it. He wants to change it into a kind of very slangy, popular type thing. He's the type of manager who would put in one of those tables that you see in your own retail bookstore of books that are hot on TikTok. He wants to change the tone of the store. And he wants to renovate a lot. And in the course of the renovations, early on in the book, one of the workers is found dead. And that is classic cozy mystery maneuvering there. Because any of you have ever dealt with a plumber or a technician, will know that when they die, it's a cause for rejoicing. Normal people are going to be happy about that. They're walking around your house, they're leaving crap wherever they go, they're eating food from your own refrigerator, and they are bilking you to the eyeballs. You know it, they know it. They're in the process of slow motion larceny the whole time. And everybody knows it, and there's nothing anybody can do about it because you didn't go to school for that trade. So when that's ordinarily in cozy murder mysteries, it's the crank in town that nobody liked who ends up dead. So there's no grief in a cozy mystery. There's no grief. There's no trauma of dying. Someone has to die who you aren't going to miss. Well, an electrician is certainly somebody you're not going to miss. And the woman and the sharkish new owner are forced not only to solve the crime, but of course to get to know each other and maybe come to like each other. And I liked it. It wasn't as bookish as I was hoping for, but then again, I suppose that would be to the point. I liked it. I don't ever go nuts for cozy murder mysteries. I often want to know what is the appeal. Well, I'm sure that I'm talking to some cozy mystery fans. What is the appeal? Is it the low stakes? Is it the escapism of the puzzle of the murder mystery, but without the danger and without the darkness? Is that what it is? That must be what it is. What else could there be? These things are never exactly repositories of great writing. I've never read a well-written cozy murder mystery. It must be that, right? It must be that you're getting the vicarious thrill of a murder, only without any of the darker stuff. I don't know. I read this book. Of course, when I'm reading this book, I was thinking two things that I guess I would think in any kind of genre work of fiction. One was, do I want to revisit this bookstore? And two is, do I care if these two try to solve another murder? Do I like, or am I interested enough in either one of them to watch them do that again? I'm not really sure. If I got an ebook of the next book in the series, I would probably read it. But not enthusiastically. I wouldn't push anybody over to read it, that's for sure. But this next one is by Lawrence Wright. This is a reread of probably his most famous book. This is The Looming Tower, Al-Qaeda and the Road to 9/11. This is all about all the stuff that Wright could pull together about intelligence agencies and leaks and rumors and splinter groups and the Mujahideen and all leading up to the attacks on September 11th. Wright's a terrific writer. He's a terrific author. I loved it when I first read it. I read it in galley copies when it first came out. I still had contacts. I got a galley copy from the publisher. And I think I remember reading this with my girls and thinking, this is going to be huge. Everyone's going to review this thing. First of all, everybody's going to review this. Every once in a while, I will get a book. It doesn't happen often. It often happens that I'll get a new release, an advance copy, and I'll say everybody should review this. That often happens. And I'll often make myself a nuisance to people in the industry when that happens. But it's not often that I get a book where I say everyone is going to review this book. It's happened a couple of times. There are a couple of books in early 2024 that I know that's true. I thought that about this book before it even came to me in a finished copy. And everybody did review it. It was a huge success. And I can see why. It's an intricate, really detailed story that's told really engagingly here. I couldn't read it again. I couldn't reread it. I mean, now that 9/11, the furor has died out. It's an event in history. A lot of you were not alive when the attacks on 9/11 happened. Now that I can look at it from that perspective, now that I know what's been done with it, now that I know that on the floor of the Senate here in the United States and in the well of Congress, elected officials who are supposed to represent their people back in their districts have said openly that they think this was all an inside job, that they think there's a huge story here that isn't the truth. Those things started immediately. Those rumors started immediately. And I was reading this book this time. I was rereading it and thinking, well, this is where all those rumors came from. The nightmare scenarios here over and over again on every page of this book. On every page of this book, there is an intelligence operative somewhere who should have seen what was right in front of him and did not. Once that happens, you say, all right, well, anybody can have a bad day, even if you're specifically hired because you don't have bad days, but you get them one after another. By the time you're halfway through this book, you're thinking, how could anyone not have seen this coming? How on earth could this have been a surprise attack? Yet at the end of the book, I can understand why this is preferred reading in Alex Jones-style conspiracy theory nuts. They love this book because it's the breeding ground for everything they're thinking about 9/11. Boy, though, what a great book. What terrific writing. Just of a massive tangle is the phrase I'll use. A massive tangle of just a domino fall of mistakes. one after another, playing into the other, feeding off each other. Just an unbelievable domino fall of mistakes to allow this to happen. To allow this, I'm not saying that the Bush administration allowed this to happen, but along the way, a number of people had enough elements in their hands to turn right instead of left, and they didn't do it. I guess in retrospect, we're always going to wonder that, but it was disturbing reading, but really, really good. Really good book. Then this next one is by Tom Pocock. He's terrific, and I see this book periodically for sale at the Brattle Bookshop. Both inside the shop in the naval history section and also outside in the sale lot. I think there's a copy in the sale lot right now for $5. But this was suggested to me by one of those ebook aggregator sites that I sign up for free. These sites that I talk about all the time, where you go to them, Book Gorilla or Book Bub or things like that. You go to them, you give them an email that you want them to use, and they will send you notifications every single day in your inbox of that day's ebook deals. Which things are $1, which things are $2, which things are free. And of course, I use the yardstick on those websites that you should use as well, which is that you don't see anything that has a price tag on it. Just don't even see it. Don't even think about it. Don't even think about it. If you think about the 99-cent books, at the end of the month, you're going to have spent $45 on 45 99-cent books. That is bad. That is very, very bad. Instead, just concentrate on the free books and get as many as you want. Make a pig of yourself. And I do that. I send, probably a dozen free ebooks to my inbox every day. My Kindle floweth over. Pocock's biography of Horatio Nelson was free the other day. So I got it on Kindle, sent it right to the Kindle. I do a huge amount of reading on my Kindle. I love this book. If I had seen a free copy at a little free library, or if there were a free copy at the Brattle, I would certainly have got it. Why not? Why not get a free copy? I didn't have an ebook of it. Now I do. And I reread a chunk of it. Pocock's such a wonderful writer. He's just so entertaining, so engaging as a writer. It's a terrific story. I'm not a big fan of Horatio Nelson. I'm not reading him with stars in my eyes, but he led a fascinating life right to the famous ending. So having Pocock's book for free, that's wonderful. Then we have a Regency romance. And I believe, I may be remembering this wrong, but I believe this was also in one of those sites, one of those daily deal sites, for free. I know that if I got it from that site, it was free, because I don't buy anything on those sites, and neither should you. Those daily deal emails that you get will be tiered for prices. There's one that I have, I don't remember which one it's called. One that I have is only free books. It's only free ebooks that day. I go wild with those. But a lot of the others will have a free version. I don't look at any of the prices. Neither should you. So this was free. This is by Anna Bradley. It's the second book in her, I forget the name of the series. But the book is called Odd Earl Out. And it's a modern Regency, as you can see, because he's half naked and she's got a dress that would cover a football field. And it's the story of a young woman who has already had her debut in Fine Society, and it didn't work. She already had her London season, and it didn't go well. Now she needs to marry money. And a man that she had a rocky past with him years ago, he seems to be the only one who will be interested. But he has become one of the hot words in the romance genre these days, grumpy. He's become grumpy. I hate it. I hate how the romance genre has just run with that stupid word, but they did, and they do, and this one does. It's romance. It's the romance pattern that is now very popular, where grumpy is standing in for another word. It starts with an A. Because the Earl in question here is not just grumpy. He's a jerk. He's that other word, that A word. And the whole goal of this romance gimmick that is so hugely popular, not just in Regencies, but in all romance, it's so hugely popular. The whole goal is that the young woman will be bubbly and sunshiny, and she will eventually warm the grumpy man. And that's what happens in the course of this book. It's done really well. I don't particularly like that gimmick, but it's done really well. So I really, really enjoyed it. Then we have a new release. I think this was an ebook that I got from a publisher, and it was a missed opportunity. I wish I liked it more. This is by Raina Cohen, and it's called The Other Significant Others, and it's a book about friendship. The author talks all about, all the significant others that we know, that we think of right away, your friends, or your loved ones, and your family. This is about that other kind of relationship. It's a book on friendship. I think that is an endlessly fascinating subject. You'd think that it would be au courant today because of the punitive popularity in certain blue checkmark alt-left circles of found family, of the whole concept of found family, which sounds wonderful, but when they use it, it is not wonderful. It is code for something very horrible. It's code for suing people. It's code for, we want to brainwash you, and in order to brainwash you, you have to get rid of your unfound family, your natural family, the family you didn't have to go out and find. We can control you from there, but you have to get rid of them. So you have to prefer a found family. I hate the way that whole concept has been weaponized, because in my own life, I have been a strong proponent of something I could call found family, of you make your family. It's a truism, but for some of us, it is true. You make your family. And I wanted this book to be more about that. It ends up taking all sorts of turns towards, I don't know, holistic improvement of friendships. I wanted it to be a different book than it was, which is a cardinal rule. You absolutely should not criticize a book for being a different book than what you want it to be. Fine if it's a different book than what it sets out to be. Then that's a flaw. But I realized halfway through this thing that no, I'm reading the book the author wanted to write. It's just not the book I wanted. So maybe it would appeal to you. It seemed a little unfocused to me. Then we have a collection of novellas, a collection of longer short stories by George Pelecanos, who can really do no wrong. I don't know how well known he is on BookTube, or off BookTube for that matter, but he's really an old hand. If he thinks a story is worth sharing with the public, it is. He doesn't make any storytelling mistakes anymore. And this is a book of his called Owning Up. I think it's 4 different stories in here. One stands out from the others. One is about a teenage boy that stands out from the others. The others are all really good. It's all really tense. But this author excels at tough situations morally. He is not in. He's an odd combination. He's an odd combination that actually Ed McBain was as well. An odd combination of, you get the sense that his own moral view is absolutely Gen X black and white, the greatest generation black and white. You get the sense that his world does grow out of a worldview in which there is complete black and white, evil and good, and that the choice between the two is not difficult to make. And yet, like McBain, like Elmore Leonard, who all have that bright line inside them, and maybe inside their fiction, when you read the fiction, it's full of gray areas. It's full of nuance. So you have that interplay between the two. You know the author doesn't look at the world this way. At least I suspect that. I've never spoken to any of the authors that I've mentioned here. But this is wonderful. Just wonderful. It is psychological suspense, police procedural, thriller, all wrapped into one. I don't really know how to describe it, except that it's crime fiction. But first-rate crime fiction. You'll just eat this up. You'll burn right through it. And I also wonder, naturally I wonder, since I've got a whole audience of reading people here listening to me, I wonder if you'll find the story that I found the strongest. There's one particular story that I thought was stronger than the others by a significant margin. And all of them are good. I wonder if you'll feel the same way. I wonder if that always varies from when people read collections. I wonder if that always varies. Probably it does, depending on what kind of story you like. Then we'll move on to Nijay Gupta, another book like the friendship book that just didn't do enough for me. I don't, in this particular case, I don't think I wanted it to be a different book than it wants to be. I just wanted more of it. It's not even 300 pages long. It's a strange religion. It's about the early years of Christianity and how odd that religion was. An odd way to think of it, since, of course, it's been mainstream and world-conquering for 1,800 years. It's a long time. It's a long time, and it's easy to frame it in such a way as that it was just divinely ordained and so has never seemed strange. But this author does a really good job of showing how strange it would be. It's not as good a job as I've seen other people do. I think the classic book on this thing would be The Rise of Christianity. But there are lots of others. This doesn't go into the kind of detail that I would want. I kept looking at it and thinking, all right, well, I understand you. In this particular passage, you're being cautious. And that's commendable. But there's a lot of context here that you could be providing that you're not. And I don't know if this means that this is not a recommendation. Probably it doesn't mean that, because if you don't know this subject really well, if you're looking to get into, to learn about the early years of Christianity, the very earliest years that we know of, this would probably be a very good place to start. I'm not that reader, so this had me impatient at times when it might fascinate you. So you might want it's well done. It's very energetically done. So you might want to check this out at the library if you're in that position where you'd like to know about the earliest years of Christianity, but you don't. And this next one, Melissa Murray and Andrew Weissman, is historic. It will be historic for historians writing in other countries, not in this one. I had to read it. I had to just read it from front to back, and also the commentary involved here. This is the Trump Indictments, which is the text of the indictments, the multiple criminal indictments that former President Donald Trump has been charged with, plus historical and legal commentary from these two experts. So you get introductions, you get notes, you get commentary on each of the indictments and their historical grounding, their legal grounding, all that sort of thing. It wasn't enjoyable reading. It was periodically infuriating reading. It's historically necessary in the same way that the Starr Report. I read the Starr Report. I read the Warren Commission, all of its volumes. I read the Mueller Report. I read the January 6th report. In the sense that these documents are important. If you believe in, if you are living in historic times and you want to pay attention to it, and I do, and we are, then I have to read these things. I don't think that I'm going to review this, but I had to read it. It was periodically infuriating because nothing is going to come of this. This is a damning book. It's full of damning criminal indictments. If you or I faced a fraction of one of these indictments, we'd spend the rest of our lives in jail. And yet nothing is going to come of this. And I would be willing to bet that these two co-authors will have been publicly executed by the winter of 2027 at the latest. Nothing's going to come of this. There aren't going to be any. There might be guilty verdicts, at least one guilty verdict handed down before the 2024 election. It could be that Donald Trump will receive a guilty verdict in a felony trial before that election, but it doesn't mean anything. First of all, it won't be all of them. The Trump indictments that are the strongest are the ones involving the highly classified, highly sensitive material that he stole from the White House, hid from investigators, made his lawyers lie about him having, and still has. He still has a huge tranche of documents that he is selling. He is fencing them to the highest bidder. He is fencing them to enemy powers of the United States on an active basis right now. And he fenced a lot of those documents and made their contents public even before he turned some of them over. People have died. Intelligence agents have died. They have gone missing in many foreign theaters because of that crime. And that crime is absolutely open and shut. The participants, the documents, what Jack Smith, the special counsel, has actually in his possession is locked shut. Trump is absolutely dead bang guilty of one of the most serious felony crimes that you can commit. Someone who committed a tiny fraction of what he did in that case is still serving time in federal prison. And that is the strongest of these cases, and it's not going to happen because a Trump cult member is the judge. And for some odd reason, Jack Smith has not vigorously pursued her recusal. She should not be on the case. She is in Trump's employ. She is protecting him. She's using a federal court to protect him from what she clearly recognizes as the greatest danger to his physical liberty. Well, that is clearly evident. That is evident in what she's doing. She's slow-walking a dead-bang trial. She should have been recused, pulled off that case. There are powers that can do that. Long time ago, years ago. See, I'm getting angry again. I read these things and I was infuriated the whole time. At the fact that this happened, at the fact that 170 million adults in this country don't believe that it happened, or believe that it happened and don't care. So what if he broke the law? I don't care. I've got an uppity brother-in-law. I can't stand that guy. And every time I say something positive about Trump, I get him. And I love getting him. I love owning him. I love getting him about that. What you say, the more support I give to those things that are getting him, the more closely I walk America into a future in which I am a slave. I don't care. Actually, I don't care. I want to get him so bad that I'll trade my liberty for it. And I'll trade your liberty too. Until you get to the classic scene, the wealthy Jews in Warsaw, where they look at a Trump official and say, okay, but you're not going to arrest me. And they get a truncheon across the face. We're already dead. But they get a truncheon across the face because that's all it takes. There are no favorites. There is no free ride here. They hate you as much as they hate us. Anyway, so let's move on from that one. It was frustrating to read. Obviously, I'm not going to write a review. How could I write a review? But we'll move on to another of the books that I found on one of those aggregator sites for nothing, for free. This is by G. Cockle, Gockel. Like a lot of those books in those sites, this is not a new book. I think this is a couple of years old. A lot of times what you will get in those free ebook of the day deals is the first book in what turns out to be a long series. I know that this is a long series. And it's meant to do exactly what it often does with me, which is make you a customer. Oh, I really like that. Well, book 2 is not free. None of the others are free. But I read book 1. The author allowed book 1 to be a free deal, and that was a calculated gamble on their part. Here's what I have to offer. Will you become a paying customer? Well, a lot of times I will. In this case, I probably will. This is called, it's book 1 in Bring the Fire. The book is called Wolves. Or is it book 1 in Wolves and the book is called Bring the Fire? I don't know. I wish authors didn't do this. Just give your book a title and shit you yap. Just give your book a title. Not 10 titles. Just one title. But it's a Loki novel. And Loki is one of the stars. The Norse god Loki is one of the stars. And the other is a plucky human woman. They eventually end up teaming up. But the thing that I love throughout this book was the fact that that Norse mythology is hauled on here and fleshed out really well. It's not Marvel Comics Norse mythology. It's not Marvel Cinematic Universe Norse mythology. It's not any Norse mythology that I readily recognize. This author, she has looked at Norse mythology and just made it her own. And it works. It really works. It's terrific. It's a weird buddy adventure as well between Loki and this mortal woman. But even that works. I loved it. Thought it was wonderful. So I would definitely get the second volume. This next one is a romance author. She is steamy. She is sexy. She is contemporary. She writes contemporary supernatural romances, and she writes them at a clip that I can barely keep up with. I could make a living out of just reading Gina Showalter. She's written a lot of other kinds of romance, and I like them all. She doesn't really put a foot wrong for me. This is she has a Warlords series. I don't remember how many books old it is. And when it comes to this sort of thing, I'm firmly in the camp of Sarah, the Bookish Knitter, where I'm not overly concerned that I'm reading these things in series order. If I start your latest book and I haven't read the last 2 books in the series, and you make me feel that, well, that's your fault, not mine. And I didn't feel that in this book at all. This is a weird one. This is called The Wrath. He's baring his abs, and may have been an initial source of interest on my part. But the book swept me up after that, because this is supposed to be our main character, one of our main characters. This is actually very similar to the Loki book, in that there's a supernatural being and a mortal person that are paired up. But the supernatural being here is the Lord of Woe and Pain. He is an underworld lord of a wonderfully drawn nature. He was the highlight of the book for me. He's on a quest to assemble bones. So once he has all the bones of a certain person, he can bring her back to life. That's a pretty intense quest, and it takes a lot to derail that. And this book is one derailment after another. I'm not going to. He's done with such a high fantasy touch by Gina Showalter that I'm not going to describe him as grumpy. He is uber grumpy. Let's just put it that way. I really enjoyed it, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm wondering if you hadn't read the rest of the books in the series. I enjoyed it. It was to use a hackneyed critic phrase, it was turbocharged. So maybe you would too, because I honestly don't remember if I read the book before it. I really enjoyed it though. And then we'll do an Everyman's Library. A new Everyman's Library edition that I'm really hoping I get a print copy of. There are a couple of upcoming Everyman's Library editions that I'm really hoping I get print copies of. And this was Chester Himes. Some of you may have seen there was a long article, I think, in it was the front cover article of the New York Times Book Review last weekend that said Chester Himes is not just a black author, he's a great author. And I wrote on the cover of the book review, I started annotating the book review before I even opened it. I wrote on the cover, "Nice straw man Seymour." Because no one has ever said he is just a black author. No one has ever said that, not in 100 years. It's just, race baiting and calling your readers racist is so popular in the 21st century that people do it without even thinking anymore. I mean, what's the recipient there? Somebody in Scarsdale or in Larchmont is going to open that to that book review and say, I always thought he was just a black author, but I guess he is a great author. What, you're going to let him onto the house, let him out of the field of the plantation, bring him up to the house on the nice carpet because he's actually a great author, not just a black author. No one thought that way. No one's ever thought that way. People have been revering Chester Himes. He's fantastic to read. These are his Harlem novels, and they're great. They're just great, and everyone has thought that forever. But it was great. I didn't read all these. I read Cotton Comes to Harlem. I reread Cotton Comes to Harlem here. I didn't read the others yet. I will. I don't often feel I don't know if you're the same way. When I get an anthology like this of concerted works of one author, I don't often feel like reading all of them in one shot. I go back and pick and choose. I reread one and loved it. Chester Himes has never been one of my favorite authors. Cotton Comes to Harlem reminded me of all of his strengths, but it didn't impel me to immediately read another book in this volume. I want the finished copy, though, with a nice cloth built-in bookmark and all that. I'll have to see. I'll have to see if maybe it's possible that can happen. And then review it somehow and see. I think he also got a big write-up in the New York Review of Books, or maybe that hasn't happened yet. This volume, perfect example of the right way to reprint literature, a way that's going to encourage people to write about it. I tried about the author and maybe parenthetically mention the venue, the vessel of reprinting. Anyway, enough of the digressions. There we go. That is a weekend reads. I guess we'll call that a weekend read. Those are some books that I've been reading lately. Were there any books on here that I haven't read? Maybe not. Well, I haven't read the Chester Himes book entirely. The volume, I haven't reread it entirely. I'll have to remember if next Friday, when I do a Friday reads on Friday, I'll have to remember to sprinkle in some books that I haven't read yet. But anyway, that is weekend reads. Of course, weekend reads is the same as Friday reads for me. I want to know what you're reading, what you're working on right now. As we take stock on Friday and the weekends, we take stock of how our week's reading has gone. Has yours been good or not? I'm an email with a whole bunch of a couple of hundred of you. And a significant number of you who email me have not been having a good reading month at all, with real-world distractions. Real-world distractions have been getting in the way, including a lot of health problems. Is that true? Is that looking up? was your week's reading good? Feel free to tell me all. But I'm going to wrap this up for now. This went long, as all my videos do, so I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.